to the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast.
Well, what a week we have for you here. Welcome to the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast. This is episode number 30. Quite a milestone for us on the Warzone Amateur Hour, and coincidentally, quite a week in the Warzone as we turn the page on a brand new season, Season 4 of the Cold War Warzone integration. Before we dive into all that, though, been a hell of a time since we last spoke. How was your week there, 10-inch cowboy in the Warzone?
Oh, baby. It's been a wild week. There is so much stuff happening in the Warzone right now. We're talking, weapon changes, crazy shit coming down from the sky. There's crazy doors all over the place. So many updates. These are the weeks in the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast that we get so excited for because we have so much stuff to talk about, and I think we should just dive right into it because I know that you run the show notes and the agenda. We got a lot of stuff on deck.
That's right. No matter if this is your first time checking in on the Warzone Amateur Hour, if it is, welcome. Glad to be here. Or if you're a seasoned veteran amateur, get yourself a drink, whatever it is, strap in because as the cowboy noted, we got a lot to cover. So let's just dive on into it. Last we spoke, we told you Season 4 was going to be going live midweek. Well, that happened as expected, but what was unexpected was these earth-shattering changes that went on. Now, there's so much to cover. I'm really just going to kind of follow here along with the old patch notes, thanks to Raven. The big thing that really kicked it off was they had a new game mode, not game mode, but a new limited time event called Groundfall, which to describe the way they said is find and secure the new SatLink stations to triangulate the location of a falling satellite in Verdansk. Loot the fallen satellites to score exclusive loot and cash rewards during the game. The objectives for this event will reward you with items such as emblems, calling cards, and a satellite weapon charm, as well as some XP. So do you want to kind of tee that up for our listeners or those who don't really know what the fuck that means?
I could be in the category of one of those people that doesn't know what the fuck that means, but I believe we're talking about the satellite recon style spots that you and I got into one of those earlier today when we played. Am I right about that?
That's right. We got firsthand experience, which was, pretty serendipitous going into this recording to talk about it. That's exactly what this is referring to, my friend.
Yeah, so they're actually, it's pretty amazing stuff. There's crazy shit happening all over the map right now, and this is just one of the things. I think, the bread and butter of this conversation is going to be the new weapons and changes, but this is super important for amateurs because in the beginning of a game, if you can get your hands or eyes on one of these things that you can score amazing perks, which we found out through firsthand experience. We found one of these at Summit earlier today. It looks just like a recon. It's basically like a pile of satellites and like boxes. I don't know how you would describe it, like Pelican cases, but basically you stand next to it, does the same like loading thing as you would at a recon. Once it's done, it basically dumps is it a satellite falls? It's like it looks like a crater coming into Earth, like a meteor striking, and I'm assuming it's a satellite, right?
Well, yes. So to back up, the way it is you drop into Warzone. Now, from what I've read, it seems like the locations are random, though I've been finding a very high frequency of occurrences up at Array and over, as we said, at the Summit areas. But yes, what happens is, as you're running around looting early game, keep your ears fucking open. Get those bat ears tuned for the environment because you're going to maybe hear some weird beeping going on. And if you happen to hear that, find the location of that sound because what you're going to see is like a little satellite uplink type of computer, similar to like a recon little machine, and it's just sitting there. And then what you do is you go inside of it, much like a recon, the little bar charges up, though it's very quickly, and that, I guess, initiates this piece of satellite to come flying down from the sky nearby, and then it will crash. That location will be clearly pinged on your map. Then what you need to do is race over to that location and reap your reward. As the cowboy touched on, there can be some tasty treats in that. For us, we got a loadout drop marker free.
Yeah, it was pretty legit. I think it fell about 80 to 100 meters away from us. It wasn't right on top of us. We had to sprint to it. It was hairy. What I don't know is that can other teams, steal your satellite dropping, or is it only visible to you?
So I believe, excellent question. I don't have a definitive answer, but I believe the ping that is displayed is only for you as the initiator of that uplink or whatever they're calling it. However, what's unknown is if an enemy team were to kill you or find that before you, I'm assuming they could probably steal your little charm treats, your lucky charms, man. They could take them.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah, I mean, if we grabbed that loadout marker and somebody killed us, they would have had a loadout marker, which...
But I mean, before we even got that, to hit the square button or whatever it was to receive that, if somebody had found that satellite first, I think they could have taken it out of our hand before we even got it.
Interesting. But regardless, it was super cool. We got a loadout, had a pretty good game after that. But that's pretty much the extent of these things. I wonder what else you can find. Do they drop? I'm sure they drop other kill streaks. What else is there?
So at the time of recording this, as a caveat, one of the main rewards that was included in it was going to be you get one of those little flares and it sends in an airdrop for this crazy armored car, which was like a souped up Bertha that had a fucking machine gun mounted on it.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. I saw a couple streamers playing with those. They're like souped up Berthas. They're almost a callback to, there was a gameplay mode last fall where I forget what it was called, but you basically had to protect your armored car, and it was whoever lasted longest or something, or you could keep respawning when you had an armored car, but it's like the same kind of armored car, armored Bertha, where there's a machine gun on top and you can constantly upgrade the armor on the truck. And the tail of the truck, there's essentially a buy station, and you can buy trophy systems, you can buy upgrades to the armor. I believe you can buy advanced UAVs from it as well.
Well, my friend, your memory serves you correct. That was called Armored Royale, the game mode.
Yes, I actually enjoyed playing that. It was really fun. Great amateur game mode.
Yes, well, that mechanic of the car was what was brought back. But as you said, there was really special things you could purchase, one of which was I don't know if it's a super UAV, but I think it's called I don't even know. But essentially it's a UAV that lasted for a really fucking long time. And you would see the direct triangulation of all the players, their little emblems, which way they're returning. Didn't matter if they had ghost. Well, what happened is a few days into that, our old buddy, the invisibility exploit that people have been finding with the chopper gunner choppers, well, that immediately was rediscovered with these new armored trucks. So quickly, Raven had to issue a patch taking the armored trucks out of the game. So to back us up, that was going to be one of the main prizes for these satellite ground fall limited time event things. Now that's no longer the case. However, some of the items you can get is, as we said, you can get a loadout drop marker. You can also get these crazy advanced UAV things on its own. I think it lasts for 2 minutes. And there's a third thing you can get, but I haven't gotten it, so I don't know the answer to that. But the main two are those. They're definitely worth your time. The main thing when I first dropped in, is I started hearing all these crazy rocket sounds out of nowhere. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So if you're like me, you're confused, that's what it's all related to. If you hear that sound, that means there's a team out there. They're completing that shit.
Yeah, I heard those I think we played that, it was late Wednesday night, I think, when it first dropped, and I remember hearing that shit everywhere, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? They got rockets flying around the map now? What a weird update. But apparently it was these sat links and exclusive rewards that were coming down.
Yes, that is correct. So keep an ear out. No word on how long this is going on, but take advantage of it. Can be a huge benefit. As I said, if you really want to try and find them, check out the array area, check out Summit. If anybody out there has any tips on where they found these propagating more frequently than other places, let us know. We'll issue an update next week. But that was the big game mode. They did have another game mode. I don't know if you've dropped into it yet, though. It's called Verdansk Resurgence Mini.
I did play Verdansk Resurgence Mini one game this week, and it was fun. I don't think the game went very well. I think we got destroyed really quickly. I think it was you and I, actually, right?
We might have done it as duos, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trios configuration. We were like, you know what? We're going to drop in as a duo to check it out. Didn't work out.
Wiped quickly, yes.
But we tried it. I think it's definitely an improvement on the previous iteration when they tried to bring a resurgence type game mode 2 Verdansk. This new one is figured out better. I can't really pinpoint what the tweaks are contrasting there, but it's worth a go. If you're getting kind of sweaty, getting kind of slapped around in the Verdansk and the Rebirth, you don't have the full quad for it, maybe try this one. It's out there. It's newly available on the playlist list.
Yeah, definitely a good option if you are not fully squatted up.
So that was, again, that's our little appetizer here coming into the Season 4 update. Now, this other feature they dropped, which you alluded to early on, is these new red doors. And as always, the Warzone Amateur Hour, we've been ahead of the curve there, baby. We've been previewing this shit weeks prior, but it's official now. There's these red doors. These do spawn randomly. And again, though, I've had a high prevalence of them over at Summit specifically. And what it is, they have a really unique sound effect, different than the normal beeping of these new crash sites. It's like a weird, like fucking, portal to a new dimension is calling to you, Stargate, Starlink upload. What you do, you find this random red door, you go through it, you go into this crazy, time warp.
It's like a Twilight Zone editing fade or something. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, wormhole animation. It pops you out at a completely random spot on the map in a little room. Typically, that room is full of legendary crates, satchels. I've heard even sometimes a specialist perk is lingering around. But, and interestingly enough, if multiple people go through the same red door, it shoots you into different spots. So, if you have a squad going in, you're going to be split up, but it's definitely worth the rewards. Keep an ear out for that. Can be a huge help for amateurs. What do you think about these red doors?
I thought it was cool. Yeah, I found one, went through one this weekend, and a teammate of mine found one. He went through, and just like you said, I went through also immediately, spawned me in a totally different area of the map than him. But it put me in this shack by airport, kind of by the houses near airport, and it had 3 red boxes, a bunch of shit inside of it. It was basically like going into a bunker or something like that. It transports you to a bunker with all this shit. Had a bunch of money. It was actually really cool. And then came out, got slaughtered, lost it all. I think I had 15 grand on me. So the journey was fun. Didn't pay off, but it was fun.
Journey was fun. Didn't pay off, but it was fun. Sounds about 90% of the time I'm dropping into the Warzone. You got to enjoy the ride, baby.
Yeah, I just a side note here, if anybody cares to hear my thoughts and opinions, I think the updates are great. These updates with, having these cool limited time in-game events, the red doors, these satellites coming down. I think it's important to keep the game fresh like that so it doesn't stay stale and it's the same shit getting sweatier and sweatier. It adds an advantage to amateurs to keep up to date with these kinds of things because, again, you're getting all kinds of perks, quicker loadouts. I think it's just good for the game and good for amateurs in general.
I agree. And I think, one thing that kind of pairs with this is it adds an element of chaos and uncertainty to the game, which I think is important. If the game becomes too predictable, the Sweatlords they have the way big, they already have an upper hand, but they have an even bigger upper hand if it's way more predictable. Then you throw in this shit with doors. Let's say you're getting chased by a team. There's a possibility that maybe there's a stroke of luck. You run into a building, you find a red door, and then you're like, later, motherfuckers, zip across time-space continuum to another spot. I don't know. That's probably not likely, but I'm with you. I think, spice it up. Let's get these little pepper grinds in here left and right.
Oh, I think it's great. I mean, there's so many amateurs playing so many games. It's bound to happen when you're getting chased by a quad and you're totally fucked, which basically is every game. And if you were to happen to run into a red door, talk about a reset button. It's just another X factor in having an incredibly epic, fueling victory. If you were to bust through a red door to survive, and if you pulled it out in the end, it's just becomes so epic. I'm all about it.
All about it. And, speaking of sprinkling in little new flavors, one thing that was unexpected that I don't think they teased with this update was they introduced a brand new vehicle, and that is the dirt bike, which of course is a dirt bike, but namely it only carries 2 people, and it's not like the ATV where you can stack that third person on there, which we never touched on, but it's kind of hilarious how you can do that. You can just stack a third person on that shit. Not possible. However, they did note that if you do have a trophy system, you can equip it on the dirt bike. You just have to stand directly atop the bike and put it right on the saddle. But have you tried the dirt bike yet?
I actually haven't tried the dirt bike yet, but it looks really fun. I've been playing in quads and stuff, and I haven't had the chance to like hop on there with somebody or by myself. I haven't done it. Have you done it?
I've ridden the dirt bike a few times. Now, most notably is the engine sound is really fucking loud, but it's cool. It definitely sounds like a dirt bike. It's got like, the other thing is, to their credit, they tune this thing. It's unique. It has its own properties. Like, you got to drive it differently than the ATV. It definitely, if you hit a steep incline, it'll really slow down. Sometimes it'll like completely stop and then kind of rev up. At one point, I was doing fucking burnouts in the middle of the airport, like runway, just like kind of having fun with it, feeling like a badass. So it's cool. It's an option. Again, it's extending the breadth of the game, new engagements. If you need a getaway, now there's like perhaps you hop on that shit. There's some cool moments that you can have. Check them out. Love that edition.
Yeah, I wonder, I, again, haven't ridden it, so I don't know how it handles, but I bet it would be a great way to get away if you obviously didn't have a Bertha or something and you're solo and you're getting shit on. I'm sure the handling on that is you could zip and zag so you're not getting sniped. You know, I bet the handling on it is a lot more liberal, I guess you could say.
Yes, exactly. You can burn out more. And the other thing is they noted it's the fastest vehicle on Verdansk.
Ooh, I didn't know that. That's a good little nugget of information to lead with.
That's right. Faster than all vehicles, including the ATVs. So give them a go. Check them out. You're more vulnerable, but there's the balance there, baby. They've been looking at the triangle.
And it could be a great, if you are falling back in and you're getting a supply run and say you're trying to get your buddy back and you could just zip by, like if you got the fast vehicle, a supply run, you just have to touch the buy to like activate it. So you go by it, see if anyone's near it, see if you draw any attention, any shots, do a big little loop. It's so quick, you come back, get your boy back.
That is a great idea. And I'm all about, when I'm playing the game, trying to like create cinematic type moments, that I can go clip that or journal about it later and be like, oh, it was so cool. I was in the back of the car and I shot a rocket and it blew up. But like you just described, like that to me, that's a cinematic moment, man. You got your teammate on the dirt bike. They're being chased, by a team. They complete the supply run contract just in time as this little fucking guy on a dirt bike. That is cool. I'm into it.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of cinematic moments, shameless plug for our YouTube, Warzone Amateur Hour on YouTube. Go check us out for all the cinematic moments you want.
Go check us out. Yes, we got some cinematic moments, and we're going to get a little bit more on that later, so stay tuned in this episode. So we got some fucking big news in that regard. But before we get to that, they made another surprise change. These patch notes, just to back us up, are fucking immense. Like, it was reading through a master's thesis to unpack all of this. It was really exciting. But the big change that a lot of people were really, really excited to hear is they changed the starter handgun. When you melee someone, all along it's been 2 melees and that person is down. Well, they nerfed that. It now takes a 3rd hit with the starting pistol to down someone. What do you think about that?
I think it's tricky because I have relied on the melee at times as an amateur just to get out of a really sticky situation. Sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes a nice melee kill really gets the juices flowing. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a bummer because I think it actually helps amateurs, but I've heard from the community that it's probably for the best. What do you think?
Well, I play on the tactical controller configuration, which moved my melee button from the right stick to my circle button, or B if you're on Xbox, equivalent. So meleeing is one of the few moves where I have to take my right thumb off of the stick, so I have trouble with it, and I'm not that melee adept. That's not usually my go-to move. So that said, I'm happy about this change. Actually, let me back it up. I'm very happy about this change because I think early on in the game, I like that limiter of like everybody's got the pistol, and there's so many times where you spend that good showmanship. You put 5 shots into the guy, he's cracked, and then he comes sprinting at you while you're reloading. He smacks you twice and you're dead. It's like kind of you feel cheated. You feel like, hey, what the fuck, man? That's not the same effort I put in. So I'm for it. I think it's more fair.
All right. I got a melee kill today with you. You remember that?
That was a badass kill, but I will note, I think you had an assault rifle out, not your starting pistol.
I did, yes. I did not have a handgun. I went in there with my AK and just shredded this guy because he was going to kill you, and I saved you.
You were out of ammo. I was downed. You fly into the room. I think you shattered glass coming in. Speaking of cinematic moments. And I'm sitting there and I just watch you fucking elbow, the butt of this gun into this guy's face, kill him, save the day. I lived. We went on to have a pretty good run, as you said. So I think it levels the playing field. Not levels the playing field, but I think it's a bit more fair, especially early game, all these little shitheads, especially like on Rebirth. We hang out at the HQ headquarters a lot. And there's many a time I've been in that tower getting my game on, and then some little asshole flies in, smacks me in the nose twice. I'm down with the full loadout. I'm like, what the hell? This guy didn't even have 3 plates. So less of a chance of that now. I support the change.
All right. Loud and clear. Well, that's interesting in Rebirth. Yeah, I've been smacked down a few times in Rebirth because everyone's respawning. I'm sure it's going to have more of an impact in the Rebirth mode. But interesting. Just keep it in mind when you go to hit somebody off the top.
Exactly. Keep it in mind, there's less of a reward for it. Your bullets should, those should be your go-to move for hurting someone in a game as opposed to hitting them with the gun. But again, that goes to logic, which we know doesn't exist in this game, so we're not going to touch that. Speaking of logic, they announced the Nakatomi Tower is here to stay, but they just gave it a new name. It is now called Downtown Tower, which, okay, cool. Stoked on that.
I just want to comment on that. I feel like we say this quite often, but it's incredible how original and forward thinking this game is. They literally rename the tower to Downtown Tower. Like, they couldn't have come up with a better name than Downtown Tower. It's a joke, and I'm assuming you're going to defend them because you're on payroll.
Well, no, let me just back up. What I actually think is interesting is prior in the original Verdansk, I think that tower had a unique name. It was like Vandalov Skyrise or some shit. They didn't even give it that treatment now. Yes, it's Downtown Tower. It's here to stay. I'm glad. I like that kind of marker in the middle of downtown, that ominous tower that you zip up that thing. It literally takes you 10 seconds on the zip line to get up there. I like it. Now, another change, which I guess this is technically a correction tied in with us. Weeks back, for those who listen weekly with us, our real fans, I should say, they had announced that Gunsmith Customs were available for Cold War guns. I was under the impression that meant, you can go in and save your loadout builds for Cold War guns. Nope, that wasn't the case up until this week, but it is official now. In this patch, Season 4, you have the ability now to go in and save your custom builds for your Cold War weapons. I'm a huge fucking fan of that. It's about damn time that came to the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that's game-changing or going to really affect your gameplay, but it's just something that becomes not a pain in the ass, basically.
Exactly, especially when you're somebody like the Cowboy who's exploring new builds, who's comparing, contrasting,
Yeah, and not saving things ever. Now that I know I can, I probably should.
Yes, indeed. And that brings us to, before we give our real meaty discussion for the day saved, let's get on to the final big addition to Season 4, and that is the new quote-unquote hijacked gulag. First impressions from the 10-inch Cowboy on the new gulag.
Very hard. I've been getting destroyed in it. I don't know where to go yet. It's still so early on. I not doing very well. How are you doing in it?
Wow. I was expecting like a little bit more nuanced discussion, like you've had some ups and downs. It sounds like you've just been getting slapped around. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically. I've had a couple of incredible victories in it where I just choose a side, typically left. So I go left, and then I just know that they're in the back somewhere. Slide left quickly, get my sight up, looking down my sight if it's that type of longer range gun, and I'm just praying that they walk into my sight. And I've had a couple of incredible quick kills doing that. But if it doesn't work out well in the beginning with this gulag, I'm fucking toast. Like, I get destroyed so often, so fast. If the gulag lasts more than 6 seconds, it's over for your boy. Like, it's just over.
All right, there's a time. So instead of the flag timer there, it's really a death timer for the Cowboy.
Yeah. It's just like the longer the gulag lasts for me, the more likely I am to be destroyed.
Now, question, you kind of touched on it. So do you have an initial strategy going in?
No, I go left, typically slide, look over. Hopefully they go to their right, my left. And if they're there and I can get to that point before they do, and I'm looking down my sight, I can hopefully get a couple shots off without too much recoil, and I can end it quickly, basically, is my strategy.
Okay. Interesting. I actually am the opposite. I've been, compared to the last gulag, I've been night and day having way more success. Part of it is like I got this week a new gung-ho attitude. I'm playing with less fear. I got more of a thirst for blood. So like I remember the first time I dropped in, I was just not even fucking worried about what the other person was like, I'm going to get in position, wait for them. So what I do is I'm the opposite. I go down the right-hand side, which if you think about from their perspective, I feel like most people go right. So that means I'm less likely to run straight into the guy in my mind if I go right. And then what I do is I kind of round that little shallow, it's like a cement curving barrier. I try and get past that to their hallway on their side. And then I kind of just wait till I see them. Because that's what's interesting with this gulag is it's really cool is it's a way more of a game of cat and mouse, and there's no clear strategy of like, oh, if I get to this vantage point, I'm going to be able to see the whole gulag. Doesn't exist anymore. It's very much like a hide and seek, cat and mouse, tit for tat kind of thing. Overall, do you like it more than the last one?
I like cat and mouse is a good way to put it. It really is like, unless you're an incredible player and quick and have super high sensitivities, it's not about positioning necessarily in this gulag, and I'm sure people will disagree, but I think you're right. It's more about stealth and getting to a position in which you can make a move, but I feel like the first individual that gives up their location is probably going to die because your opponent is waiting and watching in some capacity, right? It's not like the last gulag where I really think that more positioning was more important than letting the enemy know where you were because it was such a complex, dynamic space. I mean, there's a lot of blockage in this space, but there's a lot of like places to hide in which you still have a shot to get off. You know what I mean? I'm excited to play it more because I think you're right. I think there's advantages to be had. I just personally haven't found them yet. It takes, I got training wheels on, baby. It takes me time to unscrew each wheel, get ready, start rolling on my own, not have daddy push me down the driveway so I can get the speed to go. It takes a cowboy a little bit longer.
I feel you. And it's all about getting in there, which we certainly have no problem doing that, dying initially in Verdansk. But yeah, I personally, huge fan. Fucking thank you, God, I never have to go back to the other one.
Well, don't hold your breath because you just never know.
Okay. Well, yes, the pessimist has to speak up there, make sure my, good feelings are tamped down a little bit.
Well, unless you know something I don't. I mean, you do typically have the insights, you know what I mean?
Again, under a very strict NDA. But yes, huge fan of the new gulag. I think, like, fundamentally, the biggest change here is in the last two gulags we've had, it seemed like the first person who sees the other person, they won the gulag. Especially when you watch streamers, like they just had a strategy. They'd get on the ledge or they'd climb the tank and they'd be the first one to see the other guy, boom, dead. In this one, more than, at least even in the week I've played it, less than a week, I've had 3 or 4 times where it's like, oh, you see the guy, you peek the guy, and then like you talked about, there's a lot more to hide behind in this new one. So it's not just a matter of like, oh, I found him dead back in the game. It's very much, at least for amateurs, I think it gives us a little bit more shot to like, oh, fuck, I just turned the corner, he's there. Let me back up, try a different way. Maybe I'll lay down, maybe I'll crawl. I don't know, but there's way more room for strategy. There's way more room for getting your ass out of a tight situation, maybe pulling out a victory or two that you wouldn't have had in a previous gulag.
I think you're totally right. Yeah. I need to explore. I need to get in there and explore the surroundings a bit more. Right now, I'm a little tunnel visioned. I'm a little overwhelmed. I got to take the training wheels off. I got to see what's in front of me, what this oyster is looking like.
That's right, baby. And when in doubt, I found in gulags, new and old, one strategy, underrated, is to just not really move much. Let them come to you, because most people are fucking running. They're trying to get sprint out and run in front of you. You'd be surprised that shit can work.
Yeah, just lay down flat prone where you start and just pray to God that time runs out and then you go for the flag. I hear you.
Absolutely. So that's the new gulag. Things will be evolving. New strategies will be coming to light. We're eager to hear if you've had success out there. Share it with us, especially on our brand new Discord that's been popping off.
Boom, plug, Discord, check it out.
YouTube as well, baby. Checking the boxes. But final note before we get into weapons is we've talked about it the last few weeks, this specialist token, which was really come to the forefront during the Action Heroes mini event where you could do the Nakatomi Vault heist and get it. Then they took it out. Well, they had some specific notes on it in the Season 4 patch notes. They said, quote, "We want exciting items like the specialist token to be in Warzone. However, the ease and consistency of its acquisition was problematic. Ideally, drop locations are allowed to be chosen dynamically based on several factors like circle location, infill route, and player preference. When we introduce an exclusive powerful item that can only be obtained at one location, aka like it was only available at Nakatomi Plaza, it may have a warping effect on gameplay that can diminish early game strategy. We would also like to ensure there is excitement surrounding opening catches or completing contracts, no matter where you are on the map. So in order to achieve that, they said we need to have items that are exceedingly rare but do not have targeted methods of acquisition. So we may see the specialist token again, perhaps sooner than you might think, but it will be rebalanced in such a way that it offers neither weapon perks nor drops on death."
Okay, so that was a lot. The takeaway is that it's not in the game right now, but it's going to be coming back nerfed, essentially.
Actually false. So they jumped the gun there. It's back in. There have been direct reports, especially I guess if you play Plunder, they said you can really find it. But yes, essentially to translate that, actually really well articulated explanation is what they're saying is they don't want it to be something where it's like do XYZ, you get the specialist token. You can always find it here because as they said, it warps the way people play the game. People are always going to go to that spot, especially the sweat lord streamer scumbags, you know? So they're having it now. It's in the game. It's rare, but they want to incentivize looting. So the way you're going to find it randomly is it's going to propagate in random crates and when you complete contracts at random times.
Wow, it's coming out of random crates. Talk about a fucking crate. If you get a specialist perk out of a crate, wow.
Yes, I've heard even some people have found it in that little room with the red door.
Ooh.
But it's very rare right now.
Yeah, I mean, the rarer the better. I think I think that it was becoming obscene at Nakatomi. It was like every single person that busted in the vault had it. It was running rampant throughout the game. Even though I did like the specialist perk, once I realized how insane the perks were associated with it, how it gave you everything and what that actually meant, even with like movement speed and all this shit, it was like, yeah, I think that it's good that it's going away a bit. And I do like the idea of randomization with it because then again, yeah, people can't plan on it. It becomes a bonus as opposed to something that's implied if you do this.
Yes, absolutely. As like an edge that you can really get game after game. I'm with you. In the final sentence in the little explanation was one of the best parts, I thought, is they've changed it now. So if you do get it and you die, it doesn't drop and the next person can get it, which is great. But also we had touched on a surprise benefit of it was that it also gave you weapon perks for Modern Warfare guns. Well, they've clearly stated here that's no longer the case if you happen to find this specialist perk now. So I like that. I haven't found it yet. I'd love to. I loot a lot. So maybe we'll find it some point soon.
Yeah, that would be really nice. I think that, yeah, and again, back to it, it hurts amateurs having the specialist perk in a predictable acquiring situation. Because then, yeah, the people that are really good that play all the time, that are up to date and know all of this shit, that have all their stuff dialed in and are good shots and can handle recoil, all those motherfuckers out there, if they're planning to get this thing, they're planning to win the game, which is not good for us. So I think the randomization of it, us getting it in our hands as often as them, is very helpful.
Absolutely. You know, they already got enough advantages with all their FOVs and frame rates and all that shit. We need help, all right? Us players that when we look at the circle where we're going to drop in and we're like, let's get the fucking as far away from everyone as we can. We were never going to have a chance to get the specialist perk before, but now we can. So I salute that.
As do I. Okay.
Okay.
So now that we've talked about amateurs getting every advantage possible and not getting shit on by the sweat lords, I think it's about time we jump into the meat of this podcast.
That's right, baby. We've had the antipasto. we've had the preemie. Now it's time for the secondi, baby. The meat course, the big protein meal for us to digest and chew on. Gonna get heated here. Gonna maybe get a little bit more negative than we have, because at the outset of hearing these new weapons, tunings, and updates, little old Tron boy over here was giddy as a schoolgirl, on the eve of prom. But as I quickly saw how it came into reality, it was kind of like a nightmare for somebody that's loved the state of the weapon balancing. That's like the teaser, but basically, before we get into the specifics, let me tee up what they explained. Is they claimed that they're going to be trying to continually raise the time to kill, as in make it slower. And what they said is they expect their weapons changes to make the average time to kill 60 to 100 milliseconds slower than it is now. That was, when I read that, I was like, oh, amazing. The weapons are even going to get tuned more. Like, it's going to be a little bit harder to kill a person, which I think is good. But then what happens? They release this brand new MG82 LMG. It's part of the battle pass. You unlock it at level 15. It's actually available as ground loot. And we use the term not lightly, but I will say objectively, this gun is broken.
Yes, I really would love to hear your thoughts as a paid employee of Raven discuss their intention of trying to lower the TTK. I'm sorry, they want to raise the time in which it takes for you to kill somebody, but then they release an LMG, quite a very powerful LMG, that has essentially zero recoil, that shreds people quicker than any gun I've ever seen in this game. Can you explain to me why they did that, and the irony and I guess what is the right word? The bullshit in which their intention was in this weapon being released. How do they not know? What do they have? Like, who's testing this game? Can I please get some answers here?
I don't know, man. I don't have an answer, and I'm in the same boat as you. Like, there's a direct conflict between their stated goals and the reality of the situation. As you is distilled very clearly, they said the goal is to make the time to kill slower, but then they introduced a gun that literally kills people faster than any gun we've ever seen, I guess, other than maybe the DMR in its broken heyday.
But I actually think it's worse than the DMR is because you're not pulling the trigger multiple times. It's a point and shoot weapon with no recoil that just melts people, melts them. It's like throwing a candle into fucking, what's that volcano in Lord of the Rings? It's like, it just melts people.
I guess a candle into Sauron, I don't know that lore there, but okay, into a volcano, got it. Yes, it melts people. For those that aren't that familiar, you teed it up pretty well. It has incredibly minimal, perhaps, someone consider zero recoil. The other thing is it has really fast ADS if you kit it out.
It really does. Yes, that is a great point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Like, you're holding this, I would imagine, 60-pound LMG, and we've talked about LMGs are tuned well in terms of their downsides because they're slow to pull up and maneuver. Not this thing, dude. You pop the sights up quicker than like a pistol with this fucking thing kitted out. It's got 100 rounds. The reload is a bit slow, but it has 100 rounds. You can literally wipe, I would say, probably if you're doing your job well, 5 people in a single clip because the time to kill is obnoxious. And I've already tweeted out that, okay, hey, they made like a joke, a zombies kind of themed joke, like, hey, it had the pack of punch too much, which makes your gun stronger in zombies. They're like, we're going to tune it off. But that was 2 days ago. They let the weekend go. We're getting back into the territory where we're like, hey, what's going on here, Raven? Like, you trying to sell blueprints here? Because currently the game in its iteration with this gun, broken. I will say it. Maybe I'll get my contract terminated at Activision, but I'm saying it.
Wow, I'm glad that you admitted that. Can you take a step back for me because I want to comprehend how blueprints tie into them releasing a gun that melts like this?
Yeah. So the basic theory is, if they want to sell a blueprint for a gun, or there's a blueprint for a gun on the store, which gun are you most likely to shell out real money for? A gun that sucks in Warzone or a gun that's broken? Like, literally nobody that's unlocked this.
Oh, but you have to have Battle Pass. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying, like, let's say little Timmy just fires up his Warzone. He doesn't play a single round of Season 4, but he wants to have the dopest gun in the game. if he's ready to shell out the $20 or whatever for the pre-built M82 loadout, he gets it instantly unlocked. He gets all these attachments he can throw onto. It's a pay-to-win situation.
Oh, so all of a sudden, yeah, his chubby face, his weak knees go away because he shells out $20 and he gets the best gun in the game has ever seen.
Yeah, he jumps, these hurdles. It's a pay to win is really the best way to say it. That's the situation they're flirting with. I certainly hope, by the time this episode is released, digested, they've made that change. They've patched it, brought it in line. But now here's some more bad news.
Wait. Before we move on from the MG82, which, again, I know that I've talked about this on the podcast. I'm not a game developer. I don't have experience with anything like this, but I can't comprehend it taking longer than a week to fix one gun's attributes, right? Like I don't know what programs they use, but it can't be more complicated than changing a couple fucking numbers or sliding a little fucking lever. Like, I don't understand why they don't, and they've released updates, like, say, to the trucks. They've gotten the trucks out of the game. They've released updates since they released Season 4. How is it so hard for them to change this? I don't understand. Do they like to... I don't get it. Do they... Maybe there is credence to them wanting to sell more blueprints because I just don't understand.
Well, we speculate a lot on what it takes to make a video game or enter a code or spell your name right. We don't know these things. We're pretty dumb. But when it comes to weapons tuning, I'm fairly certain it's pretty simple. Like, it's a matter of values, because when they issue updates, weapons tunings updates, the way they describe them is they're like, again, there was a third update for the AMAX as part of Season 4. And what they said is they changed the level of damage, this headshot did from whatever, 1.5 to 1.4. So it's literally a matter of typing in numbers on these various damage values. So yes, it's not something that like, oh, they're hamstrung, it's going to take a while to get this out there. This is a matter of choice here. And like I just touched on, they, in one single season for the fucking AMAX, we saw 2 changes, now a third, because they wanted to make sure that gun was balanced. That same attention, that same sense of urgency has not yet been applied to the M82. And would you look at that? It's a brand new weapon, and there's a blueprint out there for it.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear here. It's not the M82, it's the MG82. The M82, to my confusion as I was doing research, is actually a sniper rifle.
Well, fuck.
Just a clarification, because I had the same mistake earlier. This makes me think that, obviously, there's a quote out there that I like to live by when I'm trying to comprehend things that I don't understand. And that quote is, the answer to all your questions is money. And to me, I would suspect, and maybe write a thesis paper, that Raven, your employers, Activision, whomever it is, I bet that they know that if they keep a gun that is broken in the game for a certain amount of time, you could take the DMR, you could take the Grau for a while. Now we got, the LMG, MG82. I would imagine that there's several week period in which people unquestionably will play this game because it's so much fun. Fuck, we host a podcast about this game. It's so much fun. So they're going to play it no matter what. And I think without any competition on the horizon, they know that they have people hooked. And after a certain amount of time, people will cave and buy that blueprint. So I think there is reasons for them not to make the change early on. Why do it if you have data and fucking analytics team saying, yeah, after 2 weeks of having a broken gun, 40% of the people that actually have accounts with Activision will end up purchasing this gun because they know I'm sure they're considering that stuff. And it pisses me off. Your employer pisses me off.
Okay. Well, again, for the record, not really my employer. No real direct connection, no affiliation. Do not sue us. Do not sue us. But that's the state of the MG82 at the moment. I don't want to dive too much into these theories, these accusations. We'll give it another week, see what they do. But I'm really disappointed because after what we saw in Season 3 was incredible balance, incredible responsiveness, a real dedication to really raising the TTK, now has been thrown out the window because of this gun. But that's the thing that we got to talk about next, is that's not the only broken gun at the moment.
Yeah, see, that's what I don't understand. How are you feeling about this? Because you are a man of balance. You are yin and yang over here. You like an even playing field. Obviously, the weight now is on one side of the scale. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling sad and torn and hurt. I want it back. I want the balance back. I liked when my teammates were all running different guns. Now everybody runs the fucking M82 because it's so good.
MG82.
MG82. Fuck. But yes, that's where I'm at. That's how I'm feeling. But that's also hand in hand with it gets worse, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't been paying attention. There's another new gun introduced as part of Season 4. This one is called a nail gun. And you guessed it, it's literally a fucking nail gun like you can just go pick up at Home Depot. I don't know whose idea that was. But here's the problem, all right? It has 20 rounds, which is, I like that aspect, is limited there. But True Game Data just today did an analysis of it, and the damage rate on it is so insane that a 20-round magazine of the nail gun does more damage than a full magazine of a MAC-10 with like 50 rounds or whatever kitted out. This thing, within 20 meters, you're deleted. Nothing can compare with it. It deals insane amount of damage. You can't fuck with it.
First for the record, I like the idea of a nail gun. I think that's cool and outside the box and pretty dope. And I think if they were savvy, there's some kind of zombie integration with a nail gun. And it's just like such a zombie movie. We talk about cinematic moments, killing zombies with a nail gun. We'll hold on to that idea. Put it in the treasure chest of ideas that the Cowboy has.
Okay.
Second, I haven't played with it yet. Again, this is to the point that we're making. Tron, how do you unlock this gun? How can I achieve the nail gun?
So here's the problem, all right? At least the MG82, it's a free weapon. If you hit level 15 of the battle pass, you get access to it. Even if you run around on Verdansk, it's a ground loot. Nail gun, that ain't the case, buddy boy. The issue with the nail gun is it's one of these guns where you need to unlock it. And the way you unlock it is you have to get, I think, 5 kills with a quote-unquote special weapon in 15 rounds or 15 games. So, like, the idea of doing it in Warzone, it's out the fucking window. Don't even try it, plunder, whatever it is. It's not going to happen. This is the only way you're getting the nail gun is if you're going to Home Depot or you're dropping into Black Ops multiplayer, because that's the only way you get it. So that's my problem there. Secondly, you don't even have to level it up. There's no attachment for it. So the moment you unlock it, it's fucking beastly. There's no questions about what setup do I do. There's no limitation. There's no Tron weapons tuning triangle. It's just broken, broken, broken.
Wait, so is it a blueprint you can purchase?
I think it might be. Not sure on that.
But regardless of that, it's something that they handcuff you into unlocking in multiplayer.
Seems like, yes, very much so. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, sounds like my argument earlier has some validation, baby. But I've never played with it. I bet it's fun. I bet it's great to have an SM. I've been looking for an SMG. I wish I had the nail gun.
Yes. So those were introduced into the game, but those weren't the only sweeping changes. They did a huge round of weapons tuning. And again, on paper, I love to see it. What they did is they nerfed the AMAX again slightly. They buffed the Groza to make that more viable. They buffed the Modern Warfare Scar, which was like, what? That's one of those like indie classic weapons that there's small pocket of loyal Warzone players out there were like, buff the Scar, buff the Scar. They buffed it. I heard it's actually low key now. Super good. Modern Warfare weapon again. True to their promise, they're still tweaking those, which I'll give them credit there. That was cool. The XM4 got buffed. The AMP63, which was just released last season, it's an automatic pistol. That was buffed. The ballistic knife was buffed. The street sweeper was nerfed. They call it Sniper Rifle Charlie. It's a Black Ops sniper was buffed. The AUG Modern Warfare was buffed. The Bullfrog had some tweaks. The KSP-45 was buffed. The Milano was buffed significantly. The Bison was buffed. And the DMR was buffed. So they did a huge round of weapons balancing. All these weapons now are way more viable. You can use them in Warzone and have success. Any thoughts on that?
Okay, let's look at what you just talked about. It sounds like there's a heavy amount of buffs on all the fucking weapons out there.
Well, they were weapons that weren't being used. They were weapons that had fallen out of favor. They were weapons that if you go to the chart of like most frequently used, they were at the bottom of the list. I think Scar was like the dead last in terms of weapons used in the Warzone.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that they're trying to make... Okay, so this makes my head dance all over the place. Prior to Season 4, there was an incredible balance. Everything was working. There were selected weapons. Probably the most weapons that were viable
Yes.
since the game's introduction, correct?
Yes.
So now they are trying to make even more weapons viable.
Yes.
And they're trying to refine a balance of weapons with even more options, right?
Well, so I guess the focus at the start of Season 3 in terms of tuning was like there were some outliers that were overpowered. So they brought those back in line. And what that did is it opened up your Rolodex of guns that could get you by. And as you kind of touched on, it was probably like 10 or 12, maybe more, which for us Warzone players, that's a huge fucking variety. But now, once they kind of struck that balance, they were like, all right, well, let's widen the pool even more. Let's get some of these other guns that have either been nerfed in the past or just ignored. Let's give them some love and attention, baby. Let's get them in the zone. So it seems like these moves, in my mind, they line up with what they're talking about making the TTK stable, making the game more viable for all sorts of weapons. That's what I think's going on here.
Okay. All right. That's fine. But then why did they introduce the MG82 and fuck everything up? Why did they introduce the nail gun? Is it you can't have your cake and eat it too? You know, they could have done this without fucking everything up. That's my point.
I'm with you in agreement, and that's really the huge frustration right now. But on the flip side, I'm hopeful, baby. I'm hopeful they just take the fucking MG82, nerf it, take the nail gun, nerf the shit out of it, and you're looking at perhaps a real balanced state of Warzone. So we're still close. It's just these little shithead two guns kind of, well, we got to get into it next. There's also some other shit that really fucked up the weapon situation. But, I mean, on paper, we're close, but right now things are out of balance.
This ain't their first rodeo. They have done updates before. Even before the Cold War integration, they've done this before. Like, whoever the testing and implementation team is at Raven or Activision, whatever, whoever oversees this shit, like, where is the oversight? Like, I hate to be the negative guy that kills the company that creates the game that we love, but, you know, it seems like they could figure this shit out. Am I crazy here?
No. Well,
in this regard, am I crazy here?
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not. You're on point here, and it's a shame. I'm hoping, again, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that there's just some kinks. They're going to work out. We're hit a little bit of a rough patch, a little bit of turbulence, but we got some smooth sailing coming up ahead. We'll see. It's a pivotal, though, few weeks here in terms of that.
I just feel like it's like, oh, we haven't had an LMG that's viable in a while. Let's make the greatest game or the greatest weapon the game has ever seen. So they introduce an LMG that's just destroying everyone. It's like they're so extreme about shit. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It's out of character. I mean, it's in character for like their previous, the alter ego they had in seasons 1 through 2. But season 3 was all about balance. It was all about responsiveness. It was all about cutting that broken shit out. Not the case, but so that's the issue. That's the state of weaponry going into it. But then there's this final change, which really has pushed things over the edge in my mind, is they completely retweaked the barrels for Cold War weapons. And on the surface, I love what they do. J God, ironically enough, like literally tweeted out, he was weeks and months ago, like, I would love to see the day where Black Ops barrels worked this way. Like barrel 1 gave you better mobility, but hurt, damage. Barrel 2 gave you better damage, but hurt ADS, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like a very logical, cool trade-off situation. And that's what they went in and did. They reworked all the barrels to a degree that they match the Modern Warfare barrels a little bit more. Like if you use a longer barrel, you're going to have better damage range, better bullet velocity, but you're going to have slower fucking ADS, slower mobility. Well, they did that, but I think they just turned the knobs way too high because essentially the long story short is you need to get in there if you got a Black Ops gun. You need to retweak your barrels because the situation now, especially if you're doing like a max damage build of a gun, the longest barrels are insane. There is like 0 recoil now for fucking Black Ops weapons. It's insane.
Yeah, I think that, we front loaded the show with updates that were fun and interesting, but not as, I would say, beefy as other updates, which we are now getting into. I think from our last discussion point, the MG82 and the Nail Gun are incredibly melty weapons. And if you can get those, play with them. That's one takeaway from this podcast. This is the second takeaway. Cold War weapon barrels now are completely broken. If you run an AK, if you run a FARA, if you run any of those AKARs in your loadout, you are guaranteed to, I want to say, double your kill total by the end of the game. It's absolutely bonkers how little recoil these guns now have with the new barrels. And we cannot overstate this. I was skeptical. Let me give you a little timeline of my week since the update, how this unfolded for me. And I'm sure this will spark a conversation with Tron.
Please do.
So, Wednesday night we play, it was like, whoa, all those cool shit. We played for like an hour or two, like it was late at night. Like we had work we had work in the morning, I had to get up. So boom, we play. It was great. Thursday comes around. We hear that this LMG is now just like absolutely shredding people. I played on Thursday and really did not have fun because I was getting melted by people. It was like, not as chill as it. I mean, I get melted all the time, but like I was getting shredded and at the moment I was very frustrated because, I'm a hot-headed player, man. I give it everything. When I'm in there, like my emotions are running high, like psychologically I'm frail, like,
Well, can we stop the timeline right there? Because I got a note on that I want our listeners to be aware of I like this timeline taking us through it, and it's accurate so far. Wednesday night, patch went live. I texted you. I said, "Hey, dude, let's play. I got some time." And your response to me was, "Nah, it's too late. I get too worked up, and I'm gonna be going to bed."
And then what happened?
And then I said, "But bro, season 4 dropped," and you were like, "Oh, it dropped. I'll be on." Which that was a proud moment for me. I wish the podcast team was like, somehow watching that live. That was cool, but I just thought it was funny. I was eye-opening. I'm like, what, you will play the game late at night because you get so fucking worked up?
Dude, if I play before bed, I can't fall asleep. I'm up for hours. I get so like, it gets my juices flowing. I can't separate real life from the Warzone, man. So whatever. So that was Wednesday night. Thursday play, get destroyed. Fuck, that was crazy. Friday, I'm working on I work from home. I'm like working. I'm like checking my computer. I turn on one of the streamers I like to watch. And this gun is just like destroying people. And I'm like, holy shit. That kind of explains why last night was a nightmare. And I'm seeing it just like getting just destroying. I'm seeing on our Discord. I'm getting texts from friends. I'm hearing that this gun is totally broken. It's back like it was with the DMR, but worse. This LMG is ruining the game. And knowing my mental state and how I react to getting shit on, I decided not to play on Friday. And I was getting up super early on Saturday to go fishing with my old man. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to play. Like, I can't do this. I don't want to get too upset. Saturday comes around and Tron tells me that he's going to be playing a lot of the day. He's got like hours in him to play. So I get back and I'm still thinking like, dude, I hear the game's messed up. Like this gun is destroying everything. Like I think I hopped in for one game earlier or later on Friday. Or on Saturday. I can't remember. And I got destroyed and it was like shit. But then I hear Saturday night that old Tronny boy gets a trios dub, has 13 kills, and his proudest gun in the fucking sack is the AK-47 Cold War, and he says there's zero recoil on it now. It's basically the best gun in the game, second to this broken LMG. And I'm like, holy shit, wait, what? Like the gun that Tron has invested in has become one of the best weapons in the game. I can't believe it. So this morning, you and I hop on and we play a few, and he's like, bro, you get the AK-47 Cold War. Let me tell you how it's built. And I build it as my long-range weapon. He's like, okay, so your short-range weapon's going to be the FARA. And I build that out as well, and we get a game in, and holy shit, was it a totally different experience. Like, for me, if I'm shooting at with a longer-range AR, if it's like a shot that's over 100 meters, say you're on a ridge and you're looking down, team's crossing somewhere, and it's like, oh, that's a forced shot. I don't think I'm going to hit it. Because I know I'm going to like bounce and bounce as the recoil kicks in. I downed someone from like 150 yards away with an AR, which never happens for me. And it was like, wow, this is a game changer. So I don't know where I started this rant with, but now that we're at the end of it, I'll just say the Cold War ARs, before they fix those barrels, get a couple games in, especially if you don't have that LMG unlocked. They are fantastic right now.
Yes, and there's times I question your brain. I question what's going on, if it's damaged, if it's working. I gotta say, your recap was fucking spot on. It was completely accurate. The only tweak was we got a trios dubs. I had 11 kills. The other guy on my team had 13.
Oh.
But yes, I'm kind of conflicted right now because on one hand, Modern Warfare guns, I guess, other than maybe the Kar 98 or whatever, they're obsolete. There's no reason to run them. Because the drawback previously was like, oh, the Cold War ARs are a little bit harder to handle. You kind of were bouncing around. Now that's non-existent, as we've just touched on. Guns the AK still has a little recoil if you build it out. Max damage, nothing though compared to what it was. But like a gun like the Farah now, it's like an M13. Zero recoil, except it does exorbitant damage. So even when they fix the MG82, the issue is people are just going to pivot immediately to these. So there's some serious changes needed to the barrels because I like what they did, but they just took it way too far. And I'm conflicted because like, it's cool for me. Like dropping 11 kills, I was having the fucking time of my life, but the whole dynamic of Warzone now has completely changed. As we've touched on, the TTK now is faster than it's ever been. With this AK, I take down full teams without having to control recoil. It's become now a situation where the first person to find the other guy, it's over. And I think fundamentally, like while in the short term I might have fun with that, I don't think it's healthy for the game. As much as it pains me to say it, I think they need to nerf this shit. Get it back in line.
Well, it makes me happy to hear that your moral compass is still sound and has the best interests of the amateur at heart, because this kind of insane recoil... Well, actually, I mean, this is a discussion point. Do you think that having these guns be so incredible and giving the amateur a chance in gunfights, because frankly, when you have this little recoil and you have this kind of ADS and you have this damage profile, it allows the amateur to compete with the very skilled players if they have the same weapon. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So do you think this is good for amateurs, or do you think this is bad for amateurs? And follow up, do you think it's good for the game or bad for the game to get amateurs on the same level as these pros?
Well, objectively speaking, what it does when you have this situation is the faster the time to kill, the smaller the skill gap. Like a player that's incredible at the game and a player that's not so good, if there's a really, really powerful weapon, the skill gap is minor. Like the pro doesn't have as much of an advantage to flex their skill to overcome those problems. As we said, you see a guy now with one of these guns, you fucking take him down, no question. Even if they're close to cover, they're not going to get behind it in time. The guns are too deadly. So from a perspective, I think on paper it helps us amateurs, gives us more of a chance, but I don't like that. Like there's got to be some skill involved, you know. I like the fact that when we were talking about weapons and what's for us, like you were like, hey, the AK is really good, but it's got too much of a recoil. It's not for me. I love that. Now that problem, that drawback doesn't exist. So I guess for amateurs, yeah, it's a benefit, but for the game, for balance, for the sake of competitive integrity, it is not good.
Yeah, I mean, and what does it say about that you're running the Farah as your short range weapon?
Exactly.
Like, how does that ADS even make sense? This guy's fucking Z Laner running an AR as a short range. You think he's better than me? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, like we were at a situation where the ARs had completely filled in the SMG space, and they were like, no, we don't want that. And then they make these cool changes, and SMGs come back into play. And then 2 weeks later now, I don't know if anyone's running a Cold War SMG because the ARs have all the benefits with really none of the drawbacks.
Yeah, I had been kind of into the Cold War MP5, which I've realized has quite a bit of recoil for me. And I was running the Mac 10 second to that because I wanted to, I like the idea of an SMG, something that I have great movement with, something that shreds. I like that fast fire rate. It helps a bad shot like me, but the Farah, short range, melting people. It was like I was playing very well with it. It was something that was, I think there's a reckoning coming in the balancing of the weapons. I think that we're in if like, okay, I'm going to do something right now that may seem kind of weird, but what if we just enjoyed this moment? What if we enjoyed that shit is so fucked up that it's almost like a wild, crazy playground right now where there are zero rules? You know what I mean? And it's not that the game, and you don't have to be judged right now. You don't have to worry about being an amateur because you can blame it on this broken weapon situation. Like, what if we just enjoyed our lives right now?
Well, I believe your words last week were you wanted to get to a point where it was you could look yourself in the mirror and say, you suck, it's not the gun. But right now, that's totally out the window. You're saying enjoy it, run with it. I certainly am. I got a lot of Warzone time left in me in the next few weeks, so I'm going to make the most of it. I really hope they fix it, though, for the state of the game, the player base. I can hear my friends bitch less on the chat about it. But I like that positive attitude because that's really it in terms of, the weapons, in terms of Season 4 content. This is our biggest episode ever as it stands. We got a few final things, though, final exciting notes to tie up the episode. First off, as we've talked about it, that the next-gen limitations imposed on these new systems has been frustrating people. Well, one change they did make with this Season 4 going live, which was incredible to see, is if you have a PS5 and you want to run this game at 120 frames a second, previously, you weren't unable to do so. It was capped at 60. Well, guess what? Now, if you got a PS5, you can run 120 frames. The issue is you need to have a TV or monitor that supports it. They originally stated, too, you're going to have HDMI 2.1, which is like the brand new one. Very few TVs have that. Well, it turns out people tested it. Doesn't the case. If you have HDMI 2.0, you can still get 120 frames a second if your monitor or TV supports it. So that's a way to level the playing field with the Sweatlords. The PCs are going sometimes like 180, 200 frames a second. So we need every fucking help we can get. If you got the capability, you can do it now.
I completely agree, but what happens for a Joe Schmo like me that doesn't have a PS5?
Well, a Joe Schmo like you would be stuck, but that's the other piece of big news this week is your boy Tron came through in the clutch, and there was a big old PS5 drop on Thursday, and guess who happened to snag one on behalf of his co-host? Tell our audience about it, buddy boy.
Well, okay, listen, we were both on Walmart's website trying to get a PS5 for your boy. You happened to snag one before me, which I am grateful for, but your boy is getting via Tron a PS5, which, is so good for everything, for the content, for the pod, for my visibility. Part of me is a little reluctant about this because I feel like now I like having excuses in my grab bag for being shitty. You know what I mean? Like I like to blame it on something. And this takes me one step further away from having, an endless supply of, fucking excuses, I guess you could say.
Dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I covered it when I first got mine. Like there's this weird feeling of like, well, fuck. Now if I fire up the PS5 and I still suck, like, damn it.
You got 11 kills in a trios dub, dude. You're fucking on fire.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll see if the same luck. I don't know, but it's coming, baby. And then we also got a crazy note just today that the Cowboy is getting upgraded from the digital version to the disc for free. So he's going to have a superior PS5 to Tron.
It's your boy, baby. Yeah. Things are coming together for the Cowboy. Hopefully I can get a couple of kills in my next game. Oh man, it's great stuff though. That means that we're both exporting 1080p fucking videos for the YouTube channel. It's all good, baby.
That's right. It's great for the podcast, especially for our video content. But before I wrap us up, I just got one final question to ask because you asked me, and that's, do you think you're fucking better than me now?
Yeah, 100%. Never questioned it for a second.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us this week on the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast. Hell of an episode, our biggest yet, our biggest changes to the Warzone in some time. Hopefully not breaking the game. But thank you so much for dropping in with us. If you haven't already, join our Discord server. That thing is popping off, man. We got some really passionate people out there, although I had to add a suggestion box because I quickly learned, people out there, they got a lot of fucking ideas when it comes to Discord servers.
Yeah, and also the podcast, which we love. So if you have suggestions for what we talk about, podcast, anything, we have a suggestions chat within our Discord. One of the channels is a suggestion box. I'm still learning how to use the Discord. I mean, I understand how keyboard works, so I'm participating, but don't judge us if we're not there all the time. Your boy's trying to figure it out. This is like a whole fucking app I got to learn again. but it's great. And yeah, leave suggestions there. Also, just throwing this out there, you should put up your FARA and your AK loadout in our Discord chat so people could see what you're working with and what we're talking about and what I ran and actually was very successful with.
I will be doing so, yes, and that's your best way to stay connected to the podcast between episodes, to keep up with what's going on, to interact, to vibe, to have a good fucking time, baby. So we're loving it. Get involved. As always, follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. The best way you can help us grow, support the podcast, is to share us, grow our listenership. But we're going to be wrapping it up this week, so until next week.
Dude, good luck in the new gulag. And wow, this was like the longest podcast ever. I can't believe it. We actually achieved over an hour, which is we're the amateur hour podcast. We finally hit an hour. Look at that, 30 episodes in.
The Warzone Amateur Hour. Good luck in the gulag.